Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Police have made an arrest after an autistic child was assaulted in Windsor. Plus, surprise, surprise, some record-breaking warm weather. We tell you what Environment Canada is saying about this winter. And thousands of Canadians served in the Vietnam War. There are 2 local researchers looking for them. More on that coming up. An arrest has been made in connection to a group assault of a teen in Windsor this weekend. It comes as advocates call for more action on bullying while raising awareness about autism. The CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
The moments before a group assault in the parking lot of Devonshire Mall that sent a 16-year-old boy with autism to hospital Saturday night. The teen now recovering from serious injuries.
When you heard about this, what did you start to think about?
Oh, I was just heartbroken. As a mother of a child with autism as well, it's just any mother's nightmare, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent.
Police continue their investigation today, saying a 14-year-old has been arrested and that they're working to identify several other suspects. The 16-year-old's mother says her son was preparing to take the bus home, an act of independence for her boy with autism. That was before the attack occurred. The family went public with the assault to warn others after an officer told them that these group fights happen weekly at Devonshire Mall. Representatives with the mall have not responded to our request for comment. Rita Michelli is an autism advocate and educator at St. Clair College.
I applaud this mother for having the courage to let her son venture off on his own. I'm sure that was not easy in itself for her to do that. And we don't know how much work it took to get to that. Those of us that deal with it on a daily basis can understand and relate to some of that. But every situation is different. And all I keep thinking about is how much more now it's going to take to get him to where he was again, because this is like, pushing him backwards.
Autism Ontario condemning the attack, saying people with disabilities are twice as likely to be victims of violent crime than people without disabilities.
Somehow, some way, we have to get to a point where parents can know and children can know and youth can know that they can go out in community and out in society and not be at risk just because they're an autistic child, an autistic youth, an autistic adult. That shouldn't factor into this at all. And yet way too often it does. And parents are absolutely worried and scared that their child will be victimized.
Both say this moment calls for change.
There's so many programs in the schools about bullying and how that's not okay, but yet it's still happening. So the system is broken. It's not where it needs to be. Clearly, children need more education, and this is telling us that. This example is a prime example of we need to do more. More needs to be done.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
This may or may not come as a surprise, but Windsor has broken another temperature record. Our city had the warmest December, January, and February average temperatures on record. The CBC's Kathleen Sailors is out in this gorgeous warm weather. Kathleen, what can you tell us about the winter we've had?
Well, Meg, the record we broke this year was one set in the winter of 2015 and 2016. The average mean temperature this year was 1.4 degrees Celsius. That's considering both the daytime highs and the overnight lows. The record for the same December, January, and February was 1.3 degrees in February 2015 and 2016. Environment Canada says that this isn't a surprise, given the number of days we've had with these really record-breaking temperatures during the day. But our overnight lows have also been higher than normal.
Generally speaking, we are expecting the spring to continue this trend of above seasonal throughout the full months of March, April, May, the meteorological spring. Having said that, we are anticipating a bit of a cool down in the coming days.
So Windsorites have certainly been soaking up these warm temperatures. We've been seeing people out getting their cars washed, enjoying the sunshine, exercising, taking in the riverfront. But environment and climate professionals have been at work too. Tim Burney is the CAO of the Essex Region Conservation Authority. They've been out doing survey work over the past couple weeks. That's sooner than normal. And we've also been seeing more people out in the trails and in the Conservation Authority. Ice coverage on the Great Lakes is low. At the end of February, that coverage was just 4%, and researchers now say it could be just 1%. At the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research, it's something they're studying.
We also have some ecosystem effects. As I mentioned earlier, we see pretty big changes in the lower food web from the ice-covered condition to the ice-free condition. What that means in the future, I don't know. We know that the Great Lakes are very resilient, and they bounce back from the challenges that humans place on them. But it's likely a new normal. We won't see what we had in the past necessarily.
But while it's a beautiful warm day out here today, Environment Canada says we're not out of the winter woods yet. Temperatures will dip below seasonal in the last couple weeks of March. Meg?
Thanks so much for that, Kathleen. That's the CBC's Kathleen Sailors reporting from the front lawn. Local researchers are searching for Canadian Vietnam veterans, and they need your help. The project comes ahead of the 50th anniversary of the end of the war.
Put all this documentation here too.
If you're a Canadian Vietnam veteran or have a family member who fought in the war, these two Windsor researchers want to hear from you.
Just thinking about.
No, he's still alive.
They've started a project called Be Counted, which includes developing a registry of all Canadians who fought in Vietnam before it's too late.
Canadians who served ultimately were never recognized. And I think it's time they were.
Canada did not have an official part in the war, but tens of thousands of Americans fled to our country to avoid the draft. What's not as well known is the thousands of Canadians who crossed the border and enlisted with the United States.
I didn't want to wait too long for this to happen. It's a very important part of our history.
But finding Vietnam veterans comes with challenges. A number of them have passed away and some haven't come forward because of their reluctance to talk about taking part in the controversial war.
The United States and Canada were very close. And I was fighting for freedom.
Canadian James McKay was studying in the United States. He ended up joining the military and in 1967 went overseas with the American Special Forces. The four-time Purple Heart recipient says there was no warm reception coming back.
We weren't treated as like from World War II or World War I, and we were called baby killers.
The Canadians that come back, they come back to a country where people basically ignored or didn't know anything about the Vietnam War, other than what they saw on TV.
On top of stigma, there are also logistical challenges to finding Canadians, like confidentiality laws and accessing documentation from the United States. Genealogist C.J. Scott is trying what she can.
If they're not with us, then you have to look at other resources. So voting lists, cemetery indexes, death certificates, sometimes censuses.
The efforts to record Canadians who fought come before an important date. 2025 will mark the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War.
This is an opportunity in 2025 to, one, look forward to something, but also have a welcome home event for all those Canadians that served and were never welcomed home.
It also will be 30 years since the Canadian Vietnam Veterans Memorial, known as the North Wall, was erected in Windsor. Names of 173 Canadian soldiers killed or missing in action inscribed on the granite. McKay plans to travel from Nova Scotia to Windsor for the ceremony next year to pay tribute to those who can't be there.
I think it's pretty good to honor our Canadians who fell over in Vietnam. I was very fortunate that I came home.
Gang violence on the streets of Haiti is getting worse. A nightly curfew is in place until tomorrow after a battle among armed gangs this weekend. A Lakeshore-based nonprofit that operates in Haiti is feeling the effects despite being in a different corner of the country. The organization's president on Windsor Morning earlier today.
How would you compare what's happening now to a year ago or 2 years ago?
Worse. Oh, definitely worse, yeah. In the city of Cap-Haïtien, which is our nearest big city, maybe an hour or so away, they are having demonstrations. Although the demonstrations are more to remove the prime minister rather than violent. The stories from Port-au-Prince are incredible. One man called me last week, and he said they came into his house, he and his son and his telephone made it out alive. Otherwise, they took everything in the house and set it on fire. And there's no reason for that to happen. He was a nice man.
The Canada Day Parade is returning to downtown Windsor.
We do work with dynamic displays in Detroit, so we do bring inflatables over for that one. I think last year we had 6 inflatables, so the giant inflatables. So inflatables, a lot of community entries, and as I noted and as Brian noted, members of the MCC are really involved in this parade. So we get a lot of multinational groups in.
In 2017, the parade shifted from downtown to Wyandotte Street East. But the BIA for that area has decided it doesn't want to host it again. The parade company is looking for 60 people and community groups to participate. And of course, those Canada flag cupcakes will still be on scene. The parade will kick off at 11 a.m. on July 1st at Wyandotte and Olette and proceed north to Riverside Drive and then end at Caron Avenue.
Certainly as the downtown councilor and as a board member on the DWBIA, we've really started planning out our map a long time ago of the different things we want to see downtown and different steps we need to do to revitalize our downtown and bring our downtown back to not only where it used to be, but better than ever. And this acquiring the Canada Day Parade, the Santa Claus Parade, were two big wish lists, and we were able to acquire them, and we're super excited to be celebrating Canada Day back downtown where it certainly belongs.
South Windsor's Grand Maris Drain isn't a body of water most would consider to be swimming with life, but a recently uploaded video shows carp have turned the drain into spawning grounds. CBC's Dulcin Chen has more.
Those are the sights and sounds of Cyprinus carpio, otherwise known as the common carp, engaging in spawning behavior in the shallows of Grand Maris Drain. The scene was recorded in May 2023, now viewable in a video recently uploaded by a local wildlife photography enthusiast.
I walk around in the natural areas, particularly on the west end, quite a bit, and I had never heard this noise that was coming from the water before. It was starting as a splashing and turned into what I realized was thrashing around in the water. It's a lot of sex amongst hundreds of fish.
Despite the drain's concrete embankments and urban setting, common carp or Eurasian carp can be seen spawning there annually starting in late May. Researchers with the Great Lakes Institute of Environmental Research say the fish that Haddad encountered are different from the notorious Asian carp species.
The common carp's been here for a long time, and we've sort of learned to deal with it and mitigate it, but it certainly is a nuisance species. They will take advantage of urbanized areas like the drainway, and they'll find small areas where there's a bit of grass or vegetation, and they will essentially do what they need to do to survive.
The large fish enter the drain from the Detroit River via Turkey Creek in LaSalle. Many Windsor anglers know of the presence of carp in the drain. There are even those who take advantage of spawning season in the drain to fish for carp as food. But not all fishers are keen on such a catch.
That's a bottom feeder, it's not the clean fish, eh?
Experienced local fishing guides say there might be a cultural component to the disdain for catching carp.
The vast majority of people who target carp, specifically go after carp and buy the gear for carp, are either European, especially Polish, and from the UK, and Asian immigrants. They love fishing for them. They love eating them. They see nothing wrong with them. It's part of their heritage. Anglers in North America, carp, they're just looked down upon because they're not considered a very good eating to us Westerners.
Dulcin Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
While Canadians face ever-increasing prices at the supermarket, grocers say they're being plagued by theft. Now, one of the big chains, Loblaws, is testing new receipt scanning technology connected to its self-checkouts, but some shoppers are calling it intrusive and troublesome and maybe even illegal. CBC's Sophia Harris has the story.
Marshall Irwin doesn't like a new feature at his local Loblaw-owned superstore, a receipt scanner at the self-checkout exit.
It said that you had to scan your receipt.
Once customers do so, a metal gate opens so they can leave.
It's another form of receipt check. I don't think it's ethical, and I don't believe that they should be able to do it because it is arbitrarily a form of detainment.
Marshall says the scanner at his store isn't activated yet.
They're assuming we're all thieves.
This shopper found the receipt scanner in action at a Loblaw-owned grocery store in Woodstock, Ontario.
It just introduced so much extra chaos. You had some people, especially a lot of elderly folks, were completely unaware this was a new thing and were just pushing their carts through the closed gate. There was alarms going off maybe every 1 to 2 minutes. And very loud anti-theft alarms.
Grocery giant Loblaw says it's testing the scanner in 4 stores to help combat theft, fueled by organized crime. It didn't provide data.
You have a good day. Thank you.
Many major retailers have beefed up security to curb rising theft, including Safeway in the U.S., which also introduced the receipt scanner at some stores. This consumer advocate and lawyer says at a time of rising grocery prices, retailers need to avoid security tactics that target all shoppers.
The fact that you make regular shoppers feel like criminals, that takes it a step too far. Customers already feel imprisoned enough by high prices.
He also says Loblaw can't prevent shoppers from leaving the store if they refuse to scan their receipt.
If they're stopping you and you feel like you don't have an ability to leave and there is no basis for them to detain you, that qualifies as false imprisonment.
Loblaw didn't say what happens to customers who refuse to scan their receipt. Shoppers CBC News spoke with said they hope the grocer's test run is short-lived. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Gorgeous look at downtown Detroit this evening. Today marks 313 Day, named after Detroit's area code. There were a number of events to mark the occasion, including a limited-time Verner's Boston Cooler at Metro Detroit McDonald's, my favorite. Coming up, your weather forecast. Paulo is here on this sunny Wednesday evening with our weather forecast.
Well, Meg, let me tell you all about that weather, which we're going to be anticipating. It was a beautiful day here in Windsor, and we're anticipating some rain to fall when it comes to Thursday. In the wake of that rain, we're going to see a trend of temperatures dropping. But here's what's happening when it comes to our daytime highs. It was a beautiful day, around 20 degrees, and as we get later on into our week, we are going to see those temperatures fall. Why? Well, majority of that wind is now coming from the north. No more of those warm winds from the Gulf of Mexico will be warming things up across Windsor. It's going to be a lot of those Arctic air which will be passing by, which will be cooling things down. That, coupled with the rain which we're receiving, are two big factors as to why it's not going to be as warm as it has been over the last couple of days. But hey, it's been a great March break so far and an excellent week. And how about this Wednesday, which we've had? Now, as we get later on into your Thursday, we can see that those winds start to shift again, and they'll eventually be coming in from the south. Now, those strong winds will pick up, but by the time you reach your overnight starting Friday, they'll eventually die down and switch back to the north. Now, here's what we're anticipating when it comes to your Friday wind. Well, those north winds are going to be staying strong, and you can see across the entire region, everywhere we'll be getting strong north winds. And those northern winds, as we mentioned, will be wide temperatures across certain regions will be falling back right down to single digits by the time we reach later on into your weekend. Now, a quick outlook as to what's happening with that rain which will be falling. Well, we see that the majority of our overnight, it's going to be wet in a lot of the surrounding regions, but the beginning of our Thursday is going to be dry. Now, the rain will really start coming in closer to around midday, and it's going to last all the way through until about your commute home. Now, around your commute home, we're going to see the rain is going to start to die down, and by the time you reach your overnight, the good news is there's not going to be that much rain left. Now, your Friday is going to be a day where it's going to be a mix of sun and cloud, not that much rain, which is a great news, of course. But the big news is here, if you are going to be stepping outside on Thursday, you don't want to forget your umbrella. You don't want to forget your rain boots, because it is going to be a wet one. And we're anticipating closer to around 20 millimeters to fall, worst case, but closer to 15. Hope you all have yourselves a great night and stay dry, Windsor.
Thanks for that, Victor. TikTok may be no longer in the United States. We have all the details on a bill that was just passed coming up. The U.S. Congress has passed a bill that could lead to a nationwide ban on the popular social media platform TikTok. They're concerned about its parent company's ties to the Chinese government and the security of American users. The bill now goes to the Senate. CBC's Richard Madden has the latest from Washington.
The rules are suspended. The bill is passed.
In an overwhelming bipartisan majority, lawmakers in the House of Representatives voted to ban the wildly popular social media app TikTok in the U.S. unless it divests itself from its Chinese-owned parent company within 6 months.
TikTok is a threat to our national security because it is owned by ByteDance, which does the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party. We know this because ByteDance leadership says so, and because Chinese law requires it.
In a rare show of unity, both Democrats and Republicans mostly voted in favor, with some opponents warning the move is government outreach.
The bill is written so broadly that the president could abuse that discretion and include other companies that aren't just social media companies.
Keep TikTok! Keep TikTok!
Outside Capitol Hill, TikTok supporters and influencers protested the vote, saying banning TikTok bans freedom of expression and hurts the economy.
This app is so much more than just an app for dumb TikTok dances. This is a life-changing app. So many people, not only 5 million small businesses rely on it, but 170 million people rely on this app for more than just their livelihood.
The controversial bill now heads to the Senate, where its fate is unclear. TikTok plans to aggressively lobby senators to reverse course.
I still have concerns about naming a specific company in legislation, but it feels like this House bill has momentum.
Now, some senators warn you don't win elections by cutting out a large group of young voters who are big fans of this social media app. President Joe Biden has said he would sign a law banning TikTok if it's passed in Congress, while former President Trump, who pushed for a ban in office, is now opposed. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
A Japanese-made rocket has exploded just seconds into its maiden flight. The 6-story rocket, built by Space One, was carrying a government satellite. The rocket blasted off from southwestern Japan at 11 a.m. local time, but it was barely off the launch pad when it blew up. Flaming debris rained down on the hills surrounding the launch site. In a statement, Space One said it took measures to abort the flight shortly after liftoff. The plan had been for the rocket to put a government intelligence satellite into orbit about 50 minutes after launch. The mission had been delayed 5 times because of supply and technical problems. A desert park in Southern California is seeing a spectacular spring bloom.
We are familiar with the wildflower blooms in the spring in the desert, but this is off the charts, better than anything we've ever seen.
As far as the eye can see, white, yellow, and purple wildflowers cover the fields. The incredible sight is attracting visitors from far and wide. Park rangers say it's the best bloom they've seen in years. It takes just the right combination of favorable weather conditions to get this stunning result. If you want to catch a glimpse, you better hurry. March is the peak season to see the flowers. They don't stick around for long and are usually gone by April. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch the National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy this sunny evening. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.